what has council been up to? Are they gelling together? Are they going to give us a new vision? And what about our mayor? Has Andrea Horwath been stepping up, as a lot of people hoped, given her political experience, or has her performance to date been somewhat lackluster? So I'm here with our politics panel. Their insight, as always, is incredibly valuable here on the OShow, some of the best thinkers in town. Welcome to the program, Graham Crawford, former Citizen of the Year, and of course, with I Elect Hamilton. I know you guys are continuing to monitor the new council. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Laura, and we are continuing to monitor.
Awesome. Can't wait to see those report cards on how council's doing and the mayor. Robert Pasuta, wonderful to have you back, sir. And you made a promise last time that there were two councillors that you thought might have their own agendas. You're going to tell us this time, Robert, who those people are. You promised. Also, Margaret Shkimba, who writes for the Hamilton Spectator. Margaret, your columns are always well-researched and full of punching honesty. So welcome to the panel again.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for having me.
And Kojo Damptey, so great to have you on the panel, sir. You were right in the middle of the race for this council. Your insight and your read of what's happening in your ward, I think, are incredibly important. So, Graham, what is your take on the performance of Andrea Horvath in her role as mayor?
Well, Laura, color me disappointed. This is too long to wait to see any signs of strategic thinking, strategic planning, being the kind of mayor I'd hoped Andrea would be. We're not seeing it. She is reactionary, just like she was. I mean, she spent years in a reactionary role as an MPP and leader of the NDP. But it's like, it's like Andrea had the role of a movie critic for 26 years. Well, she's not a movie critic anymore. She's the movie director now. She's in charge. She has to have the vision and the insight and the plan and the energy to create a piece of art, which I hope is going to be a fabulous city of Hamilton. I don't see that yet. I see her just reacting and only reacting when she gets pressured to do so.
Well, on the last OShow or recent OShow, we had Mary Lou on, and she made the comment that there's been crickets, radio silence, waiting for any update on the $3.4 billion infrastructure project of LRT for all the businesses and everybody else who's waiting to know what's happening. And yet I saw the mayor tweeted on January 13th, I think it is, about the new snowplow names that the staff came up with. I mean, that's fun. I like a good time, but I can't have a mayor who's only posting that kind of stuff and not posting the kind of stuff that we need to progress as a city. So let me go to you, Robert. You are sitting back, you're looking. Andrea was on your farm as part of her campaign. You support her as mayor. What has she done in terms of your expectations?
Well, in the beginning, when they had the inauguration, her speech, Laura, she had a very good speech during the inauguration. And she had direction, and I felt that she was going in the right way. She's probably doing a lot of work behind the scenes that we don't see, trying to work with the other councillors and get a grip on who they are and their direction. I think she's trying to work, and that was one discussions I had with her when we had lunch together, getting the councillors together on a one-on-one or whatever, and try to get the feel of them and how they're thinking. And I probably that's what she's doing. I believe that she jumped onto the warming shelters. Staff messed up on that one. The poor people out there freezing. She jumped onto that one fairly quickly, in my opinion. And of course, the next sewer leak we had, or the screw up as far as the contractors putting them together, I think she came up fairly fast on that one too. So in my opinion, some of the people I've talked to at this point in time, they're still happy she's the mayor there.
So let me push back on you a little bit, Robert, because on the Christmas Eve crisis, where the warming shelters were shut down by, no doubt, a staff bureaucratic idiot move, it was actually Councillor Cameron Kretsch, who was away but on Twitter actively drumming up awareness around it. And it was members of our community who had to come up with cash on Christmas Eve to keep that shelter open, to keep the hub open overnight. The mayor took a couple of days to weigh in. So maybe you and I have different standards about rapid response, and it could be my bias working so much in Toronto, but I kind of feel like Mayor Tory or even Marion Mead Ward from Burlington would have, if not been down at the shelter, been the ones leading the charge. So do you really think her response to that was quick, given that people's lives were at risk?
not as quick as it should have been. I would agree on that one down there. And it was very, the people were giving cash out to help out. And I thought that was a great idea. In fact, I even thought about it at the moment too. But then when the mayor came on and said they're going to get this together and get their act together, I thought, okay, here we go. We're okay. So, but Laura, I'll agree with you partly. Yes.
Well, you know what? All we can do is look at what we're seeing, right? And evaluate from there. We all want her to be successful because we need her to be. We need her to be successful for the sake of the city. But Margaret, when you look at, to Robert's point, yes, she did respond to now the 2 sewer leak revelations by saying, we need to keep reviewing. I appreciate that. I appreciate that she finds a microphone when there's a crisis and she responds. That's an upgrade from Fred. My concern, though, is she's tweeting about snowplows. I want to hear about LRT. She's tweeting about, hockey medals, Canada wins. I want to hear about what's happening with the vision, the budget. She's not talking about the police services budget, wasn't even at the meeting when Mayor Tory did like a 5-day media blitz just to let people know that it was coming up. So maybe my expectations are too high. What are your expectations since you ended up voting for her?
So I'm going to say that I've been disappointed with the silence. I'd like to see more communications coming from her office about what's going on, what the plans are, what's happening. In response to the warming centers, that it seemed that I do agree with Graham. It seems very reactionary at this point. There isn't any proactive. This is what I'm doing. This is what my plans are. This is where I'm taking the council. I'm going to also agree with Robert in the sense that, I do believe there's a lot of work going on in the back end of it. I do believe that's happening. I don't think Andrea is sitting at home just relaxing and waiting for some stuff to happen. But I think we need to see more of what is happening. We need better communications in the city. I think that's something that we can all agree on. That, and I want to speak briefly about something that Cameron Kretsch posted on social media today, which was a little, this is what I've been doing this is my thoughts and impressions for the last couple of months. And I thought really insightful in terms of what can and can't be done. But I do want to go back to this issue of communications. Cameron communicated, this is what's happened in the last few months. This is what's been happening. It doesn't even have to be big. It just has to be, this is what's going on.
And I want to go to you, Kojo, because you communicated a lot throughout your campaign. I thought it was a very inspirational campaign. And we can talk to the end of day about the fairness of the result. You've accepted it, you're not challenging it, but communication. You're even communicating about Ford's plans for healthcare, which I won't get down that rabbit hole on this show. But how do you see the mayor's communication? I don't know who you voted for in the election, Kojo, but I do know that you're excellent at engagement. And we are seeing, to Margaret's point, Cameron Kretsch come out as almost the de facto mayor, at least in terms of the public dialogue. He seems to be doing all the media, giving all the updates, the stuff that we would hope from a dynamic mayor.
Yes, I think it's lacking, but I do know that the mayor's office is going to be hiring people, so hopefully that addresses that point. In terms of Graham's comment about vision, well, there's good news, and we have to wait for more to happen. So tomorrow at GIC, I think there's a motion forward where they're going to discuss council priorities. The mayor, Councillor Maureen Wilson, Councillor Beatty, Councillor Jackson are supposed to plan a workshop to come up with the priorities for 2022 to 2026. And the deadline for coming up with all of that is March 31st, 2023. So Graham, you have to wait until March to give your final grades.
Well, let me, if I can interject, Kojo, I was aware of that. Probably me and about 30 other people were aware of it. Nothing from Andrea's office. You have to actually follow the city's website and agendas. That is not how a mayor communicates. So yes, I'll give the mayor full marks for at least finally, maybe she buckled under pressure. Maybe she always planned to do this within the first 5 months in office. I don't know. But the problem is nobody knows that this motion is coming forward tomorrow except about 30 people. Now the OShow viewers will know, and I guess maybe the media will cover it. I mean, this is basic communications that we're not getting. Why didn't she announce this and say, this is what I'm doing? I've been meeting, because apparently she's been meeting with councillors and she's been working with Jackson and Maureen Wilson and Jeff Beatty on this. But we don't know that. I know that because I read the agenda. I mean, this is nuts. This is basic stuff.
from a comms perspective, the fact that she was getting hammered, really, since the op-ed that I did and other things, people just feeling like, come on now, like, come on, let's hear what your plans are. Let's have some updates. Let's show us some real vigor. And so she does this thing, which I think is great, working with a new counselor, a mid counselor, and an old guard, one of the few remaining. Awesome. But we don't know about it unless, like Graham said, you got to do a deep dive and find out. So to me, I don't know if that is a lack of concern about what the public knows about, or just a lackadaisical attitude towards it, or a lack of staffing. I don't know, but from a PR perspective, especially in 2022 and 2023 with the other mayors we've got around us, it seems pretty low comms skill. So Robert, let me go to you. As Graham said, there must be stuff going on behind the scene, and as you asserted, because she's now got this motion going forward. But why not tell us about it? Why not say on Friday when it dropped, hey, everybody, I'm listening. You know what? Council's going to have some priorities. We're going to make sure we achieve what we said we would in our campaigns. We're in this to win this.
Well, Laura, I think she's picking up on this, that the fact that she needs to do this, probably from the provincial post that she had as the opposition there. A lot of the things were left behind the scenes, behind the camera. Now she has to learn how to bring this forward. As election promises were, they're going to be more open, transparent. I think she's learning from this as we move along every day. And hopefully this one here particularly will open her eyes to be more transparent to everybody. But I believe she's still back in the NDP days, or let's say the provincial government days, not the NDP, and it's her role there. So I think she's going to open up, and it's going to happen soon.
So Margaret, let me go to you on two quick points, just coming from your expertise as a columnist. You're so great with language, and somebody tweeted in this long conversation that was going on about Andrea's lack of appearance as mayor. And I have to say, unprovoked, Toronto radio host John Moore of the morning show in Toronto asked me when did our mayor become a U-boat submarine captain? And and we can't find her. That's the impression out of market about what's going on with Andrea. But somebody on the Twitter sphere said to me, we had a chance to elect a politician or a leader, and we went with a politician, which is kind of going to the fact that it looked as though Keenan was going to come and hit the ground running with a whole bunch of agenda, and maybe some would fail and maybe some would succeed, but you wouldn't get a sense we'd be looking for him at this stage in the game. That's my one question to you. And my other question to you is just about this idea of positioning. How long do you think the city should be waiting to get that kind of, as Robert said, mayoral connection to the audience?
Well, I would have hoped, first of all, that it would have happened right away. Like going to Robert's point earlier in the campaign, she's the hometown girl. She's the woman who a lot of people resonated with, who certainly felt a lot of love from the city, that she lost an opportunity, I believe, to capitalize on that love and use it to catapult herself into a more dynamic leadership position, right? It seems as though she's taken all of that love and kind of put it in her pocket and gone away with it. And maybe, as I said, she's probably doing work behind the scenes. And I do hear that Kojo says that she needs to put more people in her staff. But I saw the pictures of her at her levee, the New Year's levee that she's got in. She certainly does have that opportunity, or that charismatic way of connecting with people in person. I'd like to see that more at the communication level with everybody. And she could do that with the tools that we've got at hand so easily.
She is very good with people one-on-one, right? And I feel like that natural charisma carried her to the election with a lackluster campaign for sure, almost got beaten by a non-politician, but that love and that we know her carried through. Is she leveraging that love, or do you think that she's at risk of people having buyer's remorse?
I think there's a couple of things going on, right? So one is, how do you communicate what government is doing? I look at for the Toronto Council, there's Councillor Alejandra Bravo and Councillor Usman Malik. They give updates after every meeting, and here in Hamilton, how many councillors or the mayor give an update? Right? So there are crucial things that are happening, and how do you connect with people that are your constituents? And I think that's the missing piece, and that speaks to the communication. It also speaks to a way of governing in the past. You elect me, I go away, I will deal with all the issues and I'll come back, elect me again. Whereas now people are looking for a more interactive engagement with their government, right? Budget, policing, fire, snow clearing, all of those things. So again, to your point, if we're going to name snow plows and make it an interactive thing, I also want an interactive thing about public health, public works, planning committee meetings, and all of those things. And I think that's the key piece that's missing. So people are excited about the little things, but then they don't get the things that are actually going to impact them. I would love to see the mayor have a press conference after every council. I would love to see the mayor have a press conference every month to give us an update of what's going. And I think those are some of the things that are missing. And if she does that, kudos. And those are the things people want to see.
You know,
by the way, even Fred used to do a video after every council meeting, providing a summary of the council meeting. Now they were like watching paint dry because Fred was just boring and lacked energy and charisma. But at least he did it. He tried. Andrea actually does have the charisma. She does have the communications chops. Whenever I used to run into her at Fortino's on Dundurn, because she lives in my ward, my neighborhood, actually. You're right, Laura. There's an energy there. I mean, it was lovely. Yep. She's quite capable of this. She proves that all the time. But the fact that we think it's okay to say she's still hiring staff. Yeah. You know, Andrea was proud to say when she got elected, she had no idea what her office budget was. I know what her office budget was. It was $1 million for staff, which means she had put no thought into who she was going to hire or when, and she still hasn't hired them. You can't trickle in staff when you're in charge, when you're the mayor. She should have thought about all of this. Councillors have. Councillors have interviewed, and Cameron Kretsch, not de facto mayor, as you say, he put out job descriptions, he put out a call, he had an incredible number of resumes, they were assessed, interviews took place. All of that happened quickly because he knew it was important. She still hasn't done it. I don't give her credit for that. I'm sorry. I take marks away for that. That's a lack of preparedness. And when you're in charge, you don't have that luxury.
So let me ask you, and I appreciate your corporate experience, Graham. I mean, you know of what you speak. You've run a large agency. You've managed, you know, I'm sure $1 million budgets on staffing. Let me go to you, Robert, because you're the only one here who has sat in a chair around that council horseshoe. Is it what Kojo suggested, which is the old guard approach to council was to say, you know what, elect me, I'm going to go and do the important stuff, maybe or maybe not tell you about it, but you need to elect me again because, you know, I know all the important stuff. And so they're just not communicating in a 2023 reality expectation because of the way it's always been. Or is it a lack of energy for the job? Because maybe it's just me, but when I hit a job, I'm like putting out the KPIs and the plans like in the job interview. I can't imagine waiting for 3 months to tell people what I'm up to and what the council's up to and all the stuff we're going to do. Like, why isn't she doing that? Is she tired maybe from the provincial election? Like, I just don't get it.
Well, Laura, maybe it's hard for her, even though all the resumes are coming in, hard for her to pick the one or two that she feels that would be the responsible people for the job. I know in the city manager's time when they were there over my years there, they hired different communications people, came and they went. One of the ones that was city manager, Mike Kirkopoulos, like he was great at communications. He did a lot of stuff for Chris Murray, but you have to get the right person. And it might take time for her to find the one. She may have somebody and did interviews and a second interview and a third one. And then at the third interview, it's clicked. That person, he or she may not be the right one. So I don't know. She should have them in place by now. There's no doubt. Okay. But there could be something that you just can't click with the right person because you can get the person, but you also have the right personality to work with that person too.
Absolutely. And Mike Krikopoulos was the comms guy for Deanne and others, made his way all the way up, and now he's a city manager of another county, right? And maybe he'll come back. I joke about it with him on Twitter that we need him back. We need somebody who has some hustle and some urgency. So Margaret, just a kind of a last point on this, and then I want to move us to what council are doing, because to Kojo's point, there are some councillors, one in particular, who is giving us updates on onboarding, on 60 days in, on everything, and the rest is like, what's happening? So Margaret, let me just ask you this. Do you think that it is possibly going to be seen with Andrea, and I'm already seeing this, you know, on Twitter from people who have a bit of buyer's remorse, that she's acting in an old guard way? And it might be that she has more progressive policies. She may not have any of attachment to the scandal. She certainly wasn't part of the Sewergate cover-up. But is she kind of, you know, acting like she remembers council back in the day? Who was the mayor back then? Bob Morrow? Like, is she kind of thinking like that's the vibe, that you put out messages around ribbon cuttings and around someone winning the junior Canadian hockey championship, but you don't really need to be accountable on the other things like some other mayors have realized?
I don't know why she's doing what she's doing, or the lack of doing what she should be doing. It seems to me a real disappointment. I'll just keep with that. That there isn't more communication coming from Andrea. That she wasn't, and I'm going to go back to the Stop the Sprawl rally, where not only was she not there, but she didn't even issue a statement that could be read there by somebody. So I don't know. I'm left wondering what to expect, because I'm not seeing anything, and I don't know what I can react to if I'm not seeing anything.
Well, and that kind of kills me. It kills me, Margaret, because just what you said there. So I can't imagine being the mayor, like my gig, and having another mayor show up and fight for my city and their city on my front porch, and I'm MIA. I don't even put out a statement. I mean, the Mayor Burlington was there. Where was Andrea? It didn't make any sense to me. And to council's credit, Councillor Danko and a whole bunch of them have been out at all kinds of green, stop the sprawl and protect the Greenbelt rallies. Again, where was she? I don't understand it. And I feel like in Hamilton and in 2023, and I'll get the last comment from you on this, Margaret, before we jump to what's happening with council, some of the stuff that's working and not. I don't understand it feels like entitlement to say, I got the job. I didn't really try that hard in the campaign. I don't really have to try really hard now. Maybe I don't even want another run at this. Maybe 4 years is just like, I don't know, a reward for all my years fighting for the city. Like, it feels like it's kind of an entitlement thing going on. And I don't want to ascribe that to her if I'm just missing it. But the idea that you need a perfect comms person to put out a freaking tweet about the Greenbelt is bananas in 2023. I know that for a fact. So go ahead, Margaret.
I'm wondering if she's hedging her position, trying to leverage whatever power she does have or credibility that she has with Ford in terms of how we move ahead with the Greenbelt. I mean, it's the only thing that I can think of, because the city people, the people of Hamilton have come overwhelmingly against urban sprawl. And as the mayor, she should be spearheading that, making statements, leading rallies. So I'm wondering if she's left us out to dry, because we haven't seen this. I can't speak for the group. I haven't seen the support that I would want to see for all of the hard work that all of the people are doing to try to bring attention to this issue. It seems like she's okay with making small statements around this is going to increase our property taxes, but where's the activism that I know is in her heart?
Right. You know what, when we did the OShow interview, which people keep watching, it keeps going up views, right? Because people are like, what's going on with Andrea? So they're watching that interview that we did. And in that interview, there was no doubt in the last half of the interview that she shares values, progressive values, activism, has her heart in the right place. It was the first 15 minutes of the lack of specifics, her approach to leadership, the job of mayor, that really caused me to have pause and ultimately not vote for her. So maybe we just need to see that. I am happy that this motion from her office is going forward to do a session to come up with council priorities, to show some leadership. I'm hoping that's a result of her own instincts, but if it's the pressure we've all been putting the last month, good. I don't care. Whatever gets it done, gets it done. Let's talk, and I want to go to you on this, Kojo, about how you think council is doing. there was an op-ed about the person who won your ward that you were running for. And the op-ed said that, he's kind of been a little MIA too, slow with the updates, focusing maybe a little bit more on hockey, which was his gig. You don't have to talk necessarily about Ward 14, but in your general scope, what would be your read or your score of where council as 60 days to being fully brought in, but almost 90 days since we knew they were going to be our councillors?
I think this was the general optimism that, people were looking at. It also speaks to something that I think for those that are going to run in 2026, new and returning, whatever it might be, they should think about some of the new faces have not been involved in serious discussions at council. So the learning curve is very steep, right? So if you weren't thinking about what am I going to do if and when I win, or how does planning relate to what's going on in the specific ward? What does Vision Zero mean? What does climate change mean? What are the things that I'm going to do? If you don't think about that during the campaign, then when you win, you are left with this emptiness of what do I do? And from Cameron's thread, who is saying that there's no transition plan, that means that you have literally new councillors that if they don't have their own plan, they are stuck looking left and right and wondering, what do I even do? And I think we're seeing that. We can definitely see that in Ward 14. We can see that in some other wards, but it also speaks to a lack of how we take municipal government seriously. Because if the previous council doesn't even hand over long-standing issues within that specific ward, how is the current councillor going to address the issue, continue to address the issue? So we'll see. The budget discussions in February is going to tell us a lot. And I think after February, that's when we'll really see their true colors of who's really going to be committed and who's really going to change the things that Hamiltonians wanted to see during the election.
You know what? That's a great point. As Graham, as you're fond of saying, right, that if you want to know what an organization cares about, look at their budget. Where do they put their money, right? Follow the money. That's how you really see what priorities are. Emile Joseph, who was a part of our panel during the election, tweeted out today that there was a $350,000 allotment towards encampment enforcement in the last council. Now there is an ask of 1-point-something million, a lot of it going to more staffing and more policing on it. I mean, but that's also Emile bringing it up and highlighting it, and I immediately went to Councillor Kretsch and said, what's going on in this file? It just still feels to me like the Hamilton engaged citizens are having to do some of the heavy lifting. We're not getting the kind of rapid response or clarification or understanding that maybe we need to be able to really understand where council's going. So how do you see what they're doing and what do you expect from them? Maybe I'm being overly demanding. Do we have you, Graham?
Oh, I'm sorry, Laura, you didn't say my name.
Sorry,
my apologies. Well, look, I think I can say for the first time since I've been back involved in watching Hamilton politics, we have a role model before us right now. I think we've had some good councillors in the past, and some of them are around that table again, which is good. But for the first time, in my opinion, we have a role model, and that role model is Cameron Kretsch. And let me give you some quick examples. That Twitter thread today is a perfect example, but it's just the latest version of his transparent leadership and communication. But I've also been watching meetings. The quality of his questions comes from a detailed analysis of documents that have been put before him. This is his first time at the council table. So it's not like, oh, he's got a track record, he always, but he did exactly what Kojo talked about. If you've never taken the time to be engaged, deeply engaged, to think about what's going on, to identify issues, to think about solutions, then you're showing up saying, whoops, I won. Now what do I do? Well, Cameron did not show up that way. Let me give you another example. Cameron put the Hamilton Police Service's feet to the fire as a member of the Hamilton Police Services Board, and he's only allowed to ask so many questions for so many minutes. But I saw those questions. They were excellent. Andrea Horwath, our mayor, who I do not view as a role model because I'm looking at behaviors, not just because I don't want to have her as a role model. There's nothing I'm seeing. Wasn't at the meeting. She was missing in action. I don't know where she was. Frank Bergen came before council just this week or last week, I guess. Cameron asked more great questions, excellent questions, and so did others like Narendra and Ann. Andrea Horvath did not ask a single question. So she's made no comment at the Hamilton Police Services Board, which she's the chair of. She made no comment at council, and of which she's the mayor. And so we have a role model in Cameron Cratch. I would encourage every councillor, watch your colleague, copy him. Andrea Horwath, whenever you hire your staff, whenever you get around to doing it, or maybe as Robert says, deciding and finally dithering and picking, get them to watch Cameron Cratch, copy his Twitter feed, copy his social media feed, take a look at what he's doing, because this is the kind of new leadership, as Kojo said, this is a kind of 2023 leadership that we're looking for. Tom Jackson's still waiting for his typewriter ribbon order to come in. I mean, it makes me crazy. I watched him yesterday at the Board of Health. It's so simplistic, sitting beside the role model I've just described, and I watch Cameron Cratch take that thing apart and say, we can take action now. We don't need to keep waiting for the province to give us permission. Anyway, enough. But look within. We've got a star counselor there.
So, and that's why I keep saying, if the mayor doesn't start communicating, he's going to look like the mayor de facto, right? We used to say Chad Collins was the de facto mayor because he was pushing policy agendas around that table and organizing votes and stuff. Well, Cameron is out communicating Andrea and a lot of his colleagues.
Everybody.
With the exception of John Paul Danko, who's been very outgoing about the Green Belt, and Maureen, who's obviously on a few things, and Narendra. But really, there's a lot of learning to do with Cameron. But I think of Esther Pauls. I mean, she just came out in a council meeting and she's like, what's going on downtown? Do we really know? It's like, wow, what is that? So I want to go to you, Robert, because you said on a recent OShow that when you were around the council table, and maybe I'll play the clip, that people were not even reading, councillors were not even reading the briefs on stuff, that they would show up and they would be unprepared. So 2 questions for you, sir. One is that what we're seeing from a lot of council? They just aren't reading this stuff. That's why they're not in there like Cameron. And secondly, perhaps more importantly, who are the 2 councillors that you were keeping an eye on to see whether or not they had a secret agenda?
Okay. So the election was in October, so we got new people have come into council, and right away in January you got inauguration, and in December, inauguration comes along, and then they get thrown into the snake pit, into budget meetings. And unless you understand some budgeting and you're in business, and now you're dealing with hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, you don't have a clue, and you're looking to one another to figure out what's going on and how do I vote, which way should I vote, should I not vote, should I walk out of the room and not be there for the vote? That's what happens, because it's overwhelming. I remember my first time there, and I did budgeting, the farming and everything here, but my first time back and forth, and we start talking this, and some of the questions some of the councillors ask are really got nothing to do with the budget. It's about their own ward and trying to get something for themselves, not as a whole city. That's what I've noticed down there. So it can be overwhelming for some of them. And if somebody's been in media or been in other organizations and been a part of that organization or a chair or a treasurer, you get to understand some of that and get a grip on it. The next year, when it comes to the next year and their second year of council, they'll have a much better grip on what's going on and it'll be moving forward. I'm not going to pick on any councillors, and Cameron's done a great job, I can say that. But I think Cameron's biting off more than he could chew as far as committees he's on, subcommittees. He speaks to committee meetings very well. He's got lots of good questions. I think he's a brilliant man. He's into too much because he's doing the Twitter, he's doing the meetings, the subcommittees, and he has to deal with constituents too. Unless you got a really good staff, people can deal with the constituents, that helps, but there's constituents that want to talk to you as their counselor. I think he's overwhelmed. He's got a lot on his plate and he wants to prove that he can do the job well. And I think he can. But for God's sakes, Cameron, just back off a little bit, slow down so you don't get overwhelmed and say, I can't keep doing this, because he's going to get tired in a little while and it could affect his health. I don't want to say it in the wrong way, but it just gets to be too much, overwhelming. And Alex Wilson, I've talked to Laura, we had the OShow gathering, the party, and I talked to him and he impressed me, okay? He impressed me. But for me, when I'm hearing from people, he's got too much, I hate to use the word, green, okay? Keeps talking about the environment, the conservation, the green conservation. I don't see them, and the residents don't see expanding outward into the community that he got voted in by.
So you're saying he's more of a one-issue counselor at this stage in your mind?
At this stage, right. Everybody's in their first stage, so yeah.
Okay, well, hey, you've been there.
So
We
that's
haven't.
where it's at.
We haven't, but I'm glad you identified the two that you were keeping your eye on, Robert, because, you know, I've been waiting for a month.
Yes, yes.
Let me go to you, Margaret, and we'll kind of wrap up here, because you guys have all been great with your takes and a lot of preparation. I can tell by your responses here. Margaret, when you're looking at council and you're looking at them, you did such a great job of looking at all the wards and doing columns about all of the wards leading up to the election. So you know the issues intimately. When you're looking at the performance of this council, are you seeing them come together from a city perspective, or, to Robert's point, more of that myopic old guard? I'm going to ask questions that benefit my ward, not really bothering to understand the bigger picture on stuff. And I think Esther Paul's comment kind of goes to that. Like, that's craziness to me to hear a comment like that. So do you think, Margaret, that they are moving the city forward as in what they've done so far, or do you think their perspective might be more in terms of their own little silo?
Well, I think that first of all, we can't really say much because we haven't really seen much. So I have to couch all of my terms in this, all of my words, is because I haven't really seen much happen because of the way in which the onboarding and transitioning and whatever. So it's difficult to say that. I do want to say that because there's so many like-minded individuals in terms of the progressive ways, I'm hoping, certainly coming from this motion that's going to be on the agenda tomorrow, is it? Because that's the first that I had heard of it as well, that there's going to be some bringing together of those ideas. And that's, I think, maybe where that will happen. Right now, I'm not seeing anything, actually, to be honest. I'm seeing a lot of people that are just sort of finding their way and setting up their offices. And I did want to get back to, if I could have just a second, talk the Ward 14 letter and what Robert has just said about Cameron, and back to comments that Graham has said about Cameron as well, in terms of the sustainability of what we can expect in the future going forward, right? That you don't want to set somebody up at the very beginning that they are that and then not be able to sustain it. So we have to moderate our expectations around what we expect from people, which isn't to say that Cameron hasn't done a fantastic job, but more to the point about that letter, or the op-ed about Ward 14, is the suggestion of other interests. Do we have councillors who 100% of their time is focused on their ward or the city, or are they split? Do they have other interests that are taking away substantial amounts of their time? And I think that's what I think I took from that particular piece of writing, and subsequent discussions around all the committees that people are on, is that we have to be sure that people aren't, to Robert's point, overstretching themselves, conflict of interest, or not being able to sustain themselves, their communication sustainably over the length of their tenure.
No, it's a very good point. And I like your point about expectation setting, right? You don't want to put someone up on a pedestal and then have them burn out and fall, we want this council, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of comments after that we're quarterbacking this thing. But that's what we're doing, right? We're observing, we're engaged, we care deeply about our city. And it felt like in the last 2 terms of council, we were doing a lot of the heavy lifting that the councillors should have been doing with their well-paid full-time gigs. So we have an idea of what we'd like to see: engaged, proactive, communicative, showing up, taking it seriously, being professional, as all of us would do if we had a 6-figure gig. We don't want to see their focus split. We don't want to see them, one person taking on 50 things, because it's not sustainable. So we're giving kind of our look from here. But Margaret, I take your point really strongly when you said you're couching all of your commentary here today because you haven't seen much. And I was looking through, as I do every morning, I'm a Spectator subscriber, the Spectator headlines that they've been sending out in the mornings by email. Not a lot of council stuff going on, right? Like, there's not much. It's mostly crime and like other stuff. I'm like, what's freaking happening in my town? I feel like we're kind of devoid of information other than Cameron's Twitter feed and a couple of other councillors. And this is why I'm so frustrated, right? Stuff's going to go sideways quickly if there's not accountability and communication with the public. I don't want to do the heavy lifting. I'm sure all of you are tired too, but come on. We need to have more information coming from council. So let me end with you, Kojo. You wanted to be on council. Maybe you will run again, my friend. But what is your assessment or maybe expectation setting so that when we meet again next month, we'll have a better sense of where they are coming through, as you point out, the budgeting process?
Yeah, again, for me, just like Margaret said, we haven't seen that much, but that speaks to how I know that some councillors or the council table is not paying particular attention to how they communicate with their constituents and the city. If it's a slow time, that's when I want to be active, because I know I can get the word out. But let's see what happens in February. I think in February you are going to get councillors having to speak up, because are you going to fund the library? Are you going to fund the conservation authorities? Are you going to continue to increase police budgets? Are you going to support the HSR? Are you going to eliminate area rating or not, right? Those discussions are going to be in full focus. So that's when we'll get a sense of where people are. And also, I would like to remind people, just because most councillors might say they are progressive doesn't mean they all agree on issues, right? Because one thing that I learned during the campaign is, and this is why I like municipal politics, that's the only area of arena where you can bring people together from different perspectives and political spectrums. So it might be that there's one huge issue that you as a progressive person might believe in, but majority of your constituents don't agree. So what are you going to do? Are you going to engage and try and bridge that divide, or are you just going to say, you know what, majority wins and let's move forward? So those are the things that I'm eager to see from our new council and mayor.
Well, all of you have certainly set the bar both high and I think fairly in terms of the expectations for these councillors. We've had sage advice from your wisdom, having been there, Robert. We always appreciate that lived experience on council about how they can kind of approach it and pace it. And Graham, you held off really on a lot of your public commentary around the new council and mayor to let them get their feet together. But I always appreciate your perspective of having run stuff and knowing a lot about culture building and staffing. And I think, we can't make excuses for them. They should be ramped up by now. They've had lots of time to think about it. Margaret, thank you for the fact that you are carefully watching and monitoring, and I can't wait to see what you come up with once you've had a little bit more information from this council. And Kojo, as you point out, budget is big, right? That's where we see where these priorities are. Are these progressives going to push for progressive values, or, is that just a label that some people put on themselves for a lack of another? Who knows? We're going to see where the real values are with this council. But I am encouraged that the mayor is listening, I think, to all of us saying, please get the council together. Let's get on priorities. I heard after that op-ed that I wrote from several councillors, public and private, that they were glad to see it because they feel, to Robert's point, a little overwhelmed, would really love to see that kind of focus and that kind of strategic planning so that they can really make our city move forward and give us the change we all voted for. Thank you all, and we'll see you again next month. And thank you for watching the OShow Politics panel. As you know, we've got lots of issue panels that are going to come up between now and the next time we see all of these great minds. But please subscribe on YouTube, and that way you won't miss a show. Take care, everybody.